argued that the international system is dominated by states. There is bound to be conflict in the struggle for domination in the international system. There is bound to be conflict. So this conflict, according to this school of thought, is indispensable in any society. So in that case, that will account for the reason for most conflicts that we have in Africa, because we are talking about Africa where we have interaction of states across national boundaries. And you also realize that the conflict in Africa is as a result of
Okay, issues with connections are there. If he's there, just let me know, Eli. I'll get back to you. We've just been joined by Andrin Atem Ebako. I'll be welcoming him straight away and asking him where these conflicts are coming from. Can we see that it is also because of the situation, economic, very difficult situation? Many Africans live in misery, and because of that might cause anger and then pushing them to pick up arms to wanting to get what they lack?
Mr. KUM LEONARD, the conflicts we are talking of in Africa is not at the level of the governments. It's not at the level of our leaders and our administrators. It's not at the level of the African Union. It's at the level of the common people. Yes. So this tells us that there's a condition or there's a structure which has been put in place which affects the functionality and the mentality of the people. And these are the structures that creates a division, creates civil conflicts, and creates what I call nepotism, how will I call it, tribal wars and all of that. When you have created a situation whereby you keep people in a particular condition for a certain period of time, you should definitely expect rebellion. And I think that's exactly what is happening today in Africa because of the poverty, because in areas where people are hungry, money commands respect. And when they are left in that kind of situation for a long time, what happens is that they begin to fight among themselves. Let's take a very good example, like some of our roads. Let's use Cameroon like a very good example. Like look at the Douala road. Majority of the roads, when the government had the intention of constructing those roads, they gave the population the intention that the roads were going to be very big, where 2 vehicles can move on one lane and 2 on the other side of the lane. But at the end of the day, when the roads are being finally constructed, we realize that we get a very small road where when a truck is passing, it already occupies almost the entire road. And now the road users begin to have congestion, and you begin to have traffic, bike users, and then you start having people fighting among themselves. And at that point, it becomes as if the problem is the road users, but you don't see the people who have created that condition in which you tend now to fight your brother. And these are the things that creates insecurity and conflicts in Africa. If Africa was a place whereby it offers opportunities for common people to grow from nothing to something, people to be able to establish themselves and have a future in their own country, you won't get a civil conflict. Nobody will get up one day and picking up arms. It will never cross in the minds of Africans to pick up arms against the state or pick up arms against one another. That's why if you go in certain developed a society like Ghana, for example, and few other African countries, if you misplace your wallet or your cell phone, you get it back. Because the people have crossed a level of poverty, they have crossed a level of hardship whereby food, basic necessity is not anymore a problem for the common man. And then the opportunities are there to give the people, the Africans, the opportunity to grow and to excel. It's just same like in the Western world. If you do not excel, it's not because your country does not offer you such opportunity, it's because you don't want. But the opportunity should be there, and that is what the state which has been voted or which comes into power needs to create that opportunity for its citizens so that they grow simultaneously with the people and the country begin to produce millionaires and billionaires as the year goes by. But when you live in Africa whereby in every 10 years, like other countries, it produces 7 million Africans, it produces 8 million Africans, 10 million Africans, it becomes a major challenge when the continent and those nations are very rich. And that's why I talk about the vacuum which has been created by such structures, whereby the common people do not find opportunity in their own country, they have to run out. And then the people who find opportunity in Africa are people who are millionaires, are people who are billionaires, multinationals. They come and exploit Africa. Why the masses themselves do not have access to their own resources? And that's where the major challenge is. And that's where voluntary slavery comes in, because those things are done intentionally in order to keep the people divided and keep ruling the people and leaving the people in that condition whereby you can always use them when you want to use them. Another good example would be like in the time of elections. A party that has always been in power all the time, when it's a period for campaign, you see even the very people who say we don't want you, they still give you their support because the people need what to survive, and the state understands the condition of the people, and that's why sometimes they say we give you support, we support you. It doesn't come from their heart. It's because they are trying to make ends meet, and this is a condition that we do not need to keep our people in such condition, because it's not going to help build our nation. If you look, for example, you want to look at some of these civil conflicts here in Africa. If you how may I put it? If you go in other parts of the world, not in Africa, you won't find, for example, our own governments that are exploiting opportunities in other countries. Now, what explains the fact that an African will leave Africa and travel out? The only one reason is that he's going out for a better future, isn't it? And because your country does not offer that opportunity. And this is the same thing when we have multinationals in our own country. The reverse is true. They are here to exploit the country. But now what does the state protect? The common people, protect the masses, so that they too can have a means and access to be able to develop their own life based on what their nation has. But when a nation's economy has been taken captive, for example, by a colonial master, that leaves the population in a very hard and critical condition, whereby the few that is left for the state to run the country is not sufficient enough to develop the lives of all these people. And that's why we keep getting into loans, credit, and the taxpayers' money only go to service those loans, and development never comes. It doesn't meet the common man. Even the development that comes there, it is the one that even takes even the little in the hands of the common people. That's why you find many bars in, for example, in countries where we are. What is it doing? It's a cycle where the big man that is up there makes sure that even what is still remaining in the hand, that the biblical prophecies are coming to truth. So even the little that you have will be taken away from you. So even the one that is still small in the hands of the people, the systems which are put in place still sucks it and takes it back again to the big man, and then leave the common people in the same condition in which they were yesterday. Okay. So until we change the structures on ground, these insecurities in Africa will never stop. And that's why I say that until the multinationals leave Africa, breeze and a fresh air will not come to Africa, because they are blocking that space, and they are using majority of the African governments and leaders in creating the safe passage for that exploitation. That's why the people don't get, and that's why their government do not reflect the people. How do you represent a people, and then as a matter of fact, you look so well dressed, you flourish in wealth, you swim in money, and the people you are referring to or the people you are representing are living in abject poverty? That is a major challenge.
The resources are limited. Let's take the reaction of Tiku Felix from Boya.
And also say good evening to the entire panel. Now the question, why are wars still fashionable in Africa? First, Mr. Leo, I want us to understand that war to the African man was a kind of proof of strength and dignity. That is why you see families that do not have warriors in time past were almost termed as second-class families. Because to the African man, to send your son on the war front to defend their clan, it was pride. It was a big plus to the African man. So to the African man, war had been a fashion. It's not starting now. But I want us to look at this, Mr. Leo. It is said that he who lives by the sword dies by the sword. And if you live by telling lies, it will only take lies telling to keep you alive. The truth is, everybody in the world today, every nation, every clan crave for advancement in life. But every advancement comes with negativities as well. Like we say, one man's meat is another man's poison. People want to advance in technology, but the negativities that comes with it are for the benefit of the people that are kind of termed low class with respect to technological advancement. Why am I saying this? Technological advancement has played a lot in giving Africans a good reason why they should go for war, especially in recent times. The realities of history is unfolding now, not the fake history that we were told in time past when we were in primary or even secondary school. We've come to realize that most European countries got their freedom, especially those who were colonized, through wars. And most colonial masters got their colonies through wars. Territorial advancement has been through wars. The great and mighty America and the great and mighty Britain, or the big five, whatever, they are who they are today because they took advantage of a war. But Africa has been kept in bondage and slavery by some people who got them in that state through war, yet preaching a fake form of democracy and dialogue table thing, which they know very well will never work so long as they are still in control of those colonies and determine how things work. They have their representatives in those colonies who poses themselves as head of states, yet every decision comes from them through their representatives or the so-called head of states. Mr. Leo, Africans have been kept in bondage, yes, but modern technology has given Africans reason to come out and be like the America we have today. Using the same means that they used to get to where they are. Why am I saying this? All of us know that America was colonized by Britain. And it was through war that America gained its independence from Britain. Africans have come to realize all that. Even those who never went to school, or those who even went to school and knew nothing about history, modern technology will give them the facts, the year and everything. Africans have come to realize that countries like, or let me say like France, they have representatives here who pose themselves and work for their benefit. And these people can never be ousted using the ballot box or using French proposed strategies. And they know that the only way to do this is to do what? Is to go for war. Is to go to war. Mr. Leo, the African man had a tradition of respect. And they also have a system through which they select leaders, mostly by consulting their ancestors or gods, and are aware of the consequences should you be a defaulter. We are aware. It was difficult to see an African fighting for a leadership position. War in Africa in those days, Mr. Leo, was between one clan and another, or one country, one tribe and another. Why? Because they want to gain territorial advantage. They want to gain more territories. They want to enlarge and expand their jurisdiction of control. But when the white man came, it brought a form of lies, gaining people who were selfish and then implanting them with ideas so that they will start fighting their own while they take advantage and gain control. Africans have come of age, Mr. Leo. That is why they are taking the bull by the horn. America got it. Britain got its territories. The other, everyone, most of the colonial masters, it was true war. Nobody went and submitted.
Oh, I don't know. He's getting this, but these are wars of independence. We're talking about the wars in Ethiopia. We're talking about the wars in Somalia. We're talking about the wars in Mali, Chad, and Cameroon, and a host of others. Can we compare that with what he's trying to say?
Well, the wars of independence are a bit different from the wars we are having right now. But most African countries claim not to have received independence because there's still a war of independence going on till now. Because from every ramification, you will realize that the African countries have a kind of independence that is not independence.
Okay.
And to some extent, you see people are still fighting because they feel like they are not independent. If I thought they were actually independent, they would not have been fighting anymore. America got independence and they are not fighting again. India got independence, they are not fighting again. All countries like Brazil that got independence from Spain, they are no longer fighting again.
America was in Iraq.
America is not fighting in Iraq for independence.
America was in Afghanistan.
America is not fighting in Afghanistan and Iraq for independence. They are fighting in Afghanistan and Iraq because the war we are talking is facing one nation. But these African wars are fighting within ourselves.
That's what I'm saying.
You will not hear Ghana fighting Cameroon. You won't hear Uganda fighting Malawi. You will not hear, if Iraq is fighting America, it's war between two nations. But we are talking about Africans, Gambians fighting Gambians, Cameroonians fighting Cameroonians.
So I'm asking whether what we are talking about could be compared to what Tiku is talking about. Tiku is talking about wars of independence.
That's what
I'm not sure that's what we are talking about here now.
No,
it's the same.
Okay.
It's the same.
Okay.
It's the same.
So
this independence.
Ethiopia is fighting for independence.
The Tigray, it is a portion of the
Yeah.
people. They are looking for their own independence.
Okay.
In southern Cameroon, it's the same thing, looking for independence. That's the problem we are talking about.
Okay.
So we are talking about this war is because there is no true independence in this continent.
Okay.
If there was a genuine independence in this continent, we would not be fighting ourselves. And because there is no true independence, the people who are kept as leaders do not have the independence to give the opportunity for every member of their country to enjoy the resources. So the presidents, their hands are tied. In order to act according to the command of their colonial master, they are offending a portion of the masses. And when these masses get annoyed, they now pick guns and start fighting the same state.
Apostle Ambe, Valentine, should we still be blaming the West today?
Why not?
Yes.
For the wars we are fighting?
No. Let me balance the equation here. We are not throwing the blame completely on the West.
Exactly.
A portion of it goes to the West, a portion comes to us. This portion of the West is because the West has not allowed the colonies left in Africa completely, thereby putting the presidents in power at the tight corner. The presidents also on their own part, they are also greedy to the extent where they don't manage even the little resources given to them to manage their economy. If at all the West is taking 60%, the 40% that is left in the hand of the president was supposed to at least make sure it is evenly distributed. But he gathers a few persons who sit in a cycle. People are stealing money, embezzling money, and grasping the resources at the expense of the common man. The common man, out of anger now, is left with no choice than to pick arms and start retaliating. And so this war is tied. It has a root of not independence, and then the affection of the incomplete independence is affecting now the masses down. So what we are saying is that the West is still playing a very strategic role in keeping us in all these wars today. Like I said here earlier, the West market for arms is Africa. And nobody produces materials that does not look for a market, and it can never stop the source of his gain. The European countries producing all kinds of weapons, where are they selling those weapons? Because they are not using it to fight. There's no war in Europe. They are not fighting in Europe. Where are they selling those arms? They are selling it in Africa. And if Africa is a market, nobody can go and close down a market where he's selling his products. That's what I'm trying to make people understand. So our leaders, bad leadership, which is greed, self-centeredness, egocentric nature of our leaders, is contributing equally to the bad behavior of the West influencing those leaders. That's what we're trying to explain here. So, considering the war that he's talking there, the independence, the war of independence, those are the wars that were fought in the past to gain autonomy. We have not gotten that autonomy. If we had that autonomy, then we will not be fighting like America. We will not be fighting like India. will not be fighting like Britain. Look at what is happening right now in Mali. Those successive coup d'etats in Mali as a result because of the masses are not feeling okay. They were forced to kick out the power in question in order to give the opportunity for the masses to decide. What is happening also in Central African Republic?
In Sudan.
Sudan, they have kicked out Abdallah Hamdok, who was the prime minister, interim prime minister, to take power in order to do what? To give opportunity for the masses to enjoy. The same thing goes to Guinea. Alpha Conde has been kicked out of power because he sits in power and the Guineans are not enjoying anything. Now, look at what has happened right now in Central African Republic. Bouazizi was kicked out of power. And then suddenly, that woman, Catherine Pwaza, came to power, interim. Then now we have Faustin Touadera. Touadera now is trying to secure the interest of the people by looking for somebody who has a better deal than the former colonial master, which is Russia. Escaping from one slave master to another slave master, whose own deal is better. Just like what is happening now in Mali. Mali is running towards Russia. Why? Because when Africa were looking for independence, Russia was the country that supported most of the African countries to achieve that their partial independence. Russia armed most of the African countries. Nkrumah was attached to the Soviet Union. David Dako, Soviet Union. Those people were attached to the Soviet Union. Sekou Touré, Soviet Union. Modibo Keita, Soviet Union. They had a Soviet Union mentality. So Russia was helping them. Fidel Castro also helped during that time. Cuba. Which are all Soviet Union, they are communist people. Now, if you look at it critically, so they are preferring Russia because Russia seems to have a better deal than the other countries that have first of all colonized them. But that doesn't teach us because we want total independence. We want an independence where we can sit and decide for our products, decide who is supposed to be employed, decide how politics run in our country, decide free and fair elections, which are things we do not have. So the war that Mr. Felix is talking is the war of independence, which they fought and they had. What we are fighting now is still the war of independence indirectly, because we are not independent.
Okay, we are not independent by your WhatsApp. This one says, permits me submit to you that wars are still fashionable in Africa because we have proven to be a fertile market for ammunition. Leonard, do you know that 5 top key members of the UN Security Council are the major producers of arms? They cause conflict so that they can find avenues to sell what they produce. We have to stand on the guard and denounce all forms of external influx to thwart and maim our continent. Tata Elvis is writing from Yaoundé. Leaders must not fail those who elect them to lead. War continues in Africa because of poverty. A rich man can't carry gun to fight. Pilo is writing from Kumba. Good evening to you, Pilo. Good evening, Mr. Leo and crew. You want me to read something from the Facebook page, which says, why always blame but the West? The West gave you good opportunity to study and have PhD, yet you can't apply the knowledge. Let Africans share their responsibility. Why are other places prosperous? Leadership is the key of any success or failure. Okay? Thank you for that contribution. Good evening, Mr. KUM LEONARD. I like the topic and enjoy Apostle Ambe and the panel and also Mr. Atem. They have very frank and hit the nail just at the head. Prince Ebong writing from Tombell. Good evening to you, Prince. Now, I'll get to you. Dr. Herman Bamnjo, if you are there, I pray that the network should permit you go through with your delivery. Are we also witnessing another scenario, another Cold War scenario, where we have a clash of civilizations in Africa? The Russians are trying to position themselves, and the West is also there, and the East, led by the Chinese, are also in Africa, and each are trying to play their game from behind with actors who are our brothers and sisters.
Well, Leo, I want to tell you that you know, the foreign policy of China, the foreign policy of the U.S. Of recent is changing, and it's changing because of what Africa is to the world. And that is why one president without Africa is no France. And I want to tell you that, Leo, if you look at the conflict in Africa, you realize that the inequitable distribution of natural resources account for all of these wahalas that we have in Africa. Why are we saying this? We have a few leaders who feel that the resources are supposed to be centered around them. We have some leaders who feel that they are the ones who may live in or stay in power for as long as they want.
Yeah, the network is really not good at Andrin at Ebako. Can we see another scenario, Cold War scenario, that is being played out in Africa as we speak?
Come again, Mr. KUM LEONARD, please.
I'm talking about in the past, we saw the rift between the West and the East, the Cold War between the West and Russia, the communist East. We once again observing another scenario.
You see, the situation in Africa is a bit complicated if you really cannot understand exactly what is happening in Africa. You see, there is a game which is being played at the level of the West and especially at the level of the UN National Security Council.
Is the East not also part of it?
It is, but let me try to make it, because we are focused more on Africa, the conflicts we have here, and how destructive and how damaging it is in our society. So my point here is that the wars or the conflicts we are having, if you look at all of them, their genealogy, it goes back to the imperialists or the colonialists. That simply means there's another third world war taking place in Africa. But this one is not physically the imperialists in Africa. It's Africans fighting Africans on the behalf either of France or the Britain or the Americans or the United Nations. Those are, I mean, a good example would be the one in Northwest and Southwest. You look at it, all of it, it goes back to the genealogy of the imperialists. So what we are saying here is that we are not going to allow these wars or these conflicts be fought in Africa to benefit or to profit someone else and not the African people. And the struggle which our people are conducting to liberate themselves, I think it is a good initiative for them to fight for their own self-determination. But if you look at, if we are going to emerge in all of these conflicts, Mr. Leo, we will have to change the strategy on how we want to build leaderships in Africa. Because if we build leaderships in Africa by the structures which are set in place by the imperialists, we are not going to get the kind of right leaders we need in Africa. Because if you look at all the democratically elected presidents in Africa, almost 99% of them do not do well. And that's a major challenge. That means that we cannot repeat the same thing over and over and then we're expecting to get another result. So if you take a good look under the context of which I'm speaking, look at Magufuli. He lived just for 5 years and suddenly he was killed. Another person comes to power, the country's future becomes a different ball game. You look at all the coups, for example, Assimi Goïta in Mali, when he took over that transitional government, we've had all kinds of sanctions. I think about 2 weeks ago, they had to send out ECOWAS out of Mali because ECOWAS had over-intruded in the affairs of the Malians. And you come to realize that if we continue this road of building leaders at that level, we are not going to have leaders that are going to reflect the people. If you look at the way like people like Paul Kagame, Magufuli, and Sankara, and Gaddafi, and many others who sprang among the people who grew, leaders that grew among the masses and they grew up with their people, such leaders do well. And I think that if we begin to re-strategize and change the strategy on how we want to appoint our leaders, it's going to help Africa in getting the right leaders that are going to stand with their people and their people are going to stand with them. Because right now, the major problem in Africa is that we have leaders and administration and governments that do not have connection with the masses. That means that you are not leading the people, you are serving the interests of another person. And when you are talking of a shepherd, there must be sheep that you are leading. There must be people that you communicate with. There must be people that you are building your nation together with. There must be people that you rely in order for you to get a good and the right sense of leading the people. But this is not what we have in Africa, because the structures that are put in place are not designed by us. They are designed by the UN, and they said you have to follow this procedure. And all the leaders and presidents we've had there, they have not done well. That is a simple truth. None have reflected the people. So what do? We need to go back to what I think one of our colleagues was talking about. In our culture, we believe in you select a leader from either you get from elders, from ancestors who guide you to appoint a leader. It's the same thing in America. It's the same thing in China. After the votes, people have gone out to vote, the electoral college has to still sit down and then decide. That means that the state still now calls on the elders to choose the president. The same thing in China. 2,980 persons are consulted and say, what president do we need at this point in China? And they have to decide. And this is how we feel that coronating or ordaining or appointing or electing a president should be a, how will I call it, should be a secret thing. When we have chosen our president, it now comes openly as a celebration, but we cannot go out publicly. It's like a man who is having a sexual intercourse with his wife on the public, in the public. We need these things to be done privately, and democracy does not give us the chance to do such things like that. And that is why we are not getting the kind of leaders that we need, which are causing all of this insecurity, because the communication between we are Africans, we are in Africa, we know what we are talking of. We do not have communication with our states. The nation resources, which is being controlled by these people who are there on the behalf of another person, which is not their own people. We don't have communication with these people. Okay. How do you live in a society, Mr. KUM LEONARD, where government officials are passing? The whole road has to, everybody has to leave the road as if we are expecting Jesus to come from heaven. These things have to change, Mr. Leo, if we are going to move on as a people. It has to change.
We are going to take a short break to continue after.
With DSTV English Pack, your subscription enters a new dimension. Movies, series, novellas, emotions are more deeper in English language. Enjoy La Liga from the front row and the Premier League in immersion. On Nickelodeon, English is just superpower absolute. With E and One Magic in original version. Reality TV becomes real TV. And on African News and Discovery, News and Discovery shines worldwide. Post your programs with a DSTV English Pack option of Canal Plus and its 15 premium channels. Accessible as from 5,000 friends. Take advantage now.
Welcome back. You're watching Prime on My Media Prime. We are going to continue with that same topic. Apostle Ambe Valentine Ngwa, he was raising an issue that a minister or a big official is passing, and the community will have to be taken completely out of the way because the minister is passing. People also disgruntled because of the extreme class distinction and the inequitable distribution of the resources. I'm talking about the wealth of nations.
You know, I said something once that when the British came to Africa, they used the chiefs and the funds in those days to relate with the people because they had touch with the people. They could feel the pains of the people. They came out of the people. In most of our African cultures, chiefs are caught and hidden, and then they show them the secrets of the place. Then the people who are going to coronate you as a king, definitely they have some oaths they take with you, which you climb in the place of leadership. They hand you to the people, which means you are coming from within the people. You understand the worries of the people. You understand the plight of the people. You understand the difficulties of the people. But today we have leaders who are being appointed. They are not in touch with the people they are sent to. They are in touch with the people who sent them. I repeat, they are not in touch with the people they are sent to. They are in touch with the people who sent them. There are presidents whom you call certain places in their country, they will not know. You call Kikaikilaiki, they won't know. You call Atem, they will not know. But they are presidents of that state, of that particular nation. You call Meluf, they will not know. You call Kikaikom, they will not know. You call Pharaoh Edio, they will not know. You call Diamare, they will not know. You call Lom Njerim, they will not know. You call Bafakabalwe, they will not know. But they are presidents of that nation. But they know the names of streets in France. They know the names of streets in Switzerland. They know the names of streets in Canada. They know the names of streets in America. But they don't know the streets of villages in the country they are running. That tells you they are more in touch with those who sent them than being in touch with the people they are being sent to. So this class distinction, do you know that there are people we have not seen in this country physically, but on television? But in the days of Thomas Isidore Sankara, Prime Minister of Burkina Faso 1983, faced and criticized the government, arrested and kept under house arrest. His friends organized a coup d'etat and put him in power. From 1980 to 1987, almost every Burkinabe had access to Sankara. He drove bikes in the streets, he touched the people, he went to sites where they were doing constructions. I can tell you of many African presidents, their nation, citizens of their country, have not seen them physically like this one-on-one. How can you be a father to a people? They cannot have access to you. There's a lot of demarcation. There's a class structure. The case of Libya was different. Libya was a country where when you give birth, there is a particular amount of money paid by the government, which means the country was not known from the television. They were known from family cycles. Any country that does not have head count of its citizens at a family cycle, except when they are doing population census, that country is not in touch with the citizens. When you going to go to, when in Libya, when you go to the when you are when you are out of the university, you are not working, they are giving you a particular amount of money. That is to let you understand that the state is in touch with the masses. There are some things that a nation does, you will know they are linked between them and the masses. But there are states where you can live in that country for 30 years and you are unable to see your own president, I mean the father of the nation. It tells you the gap between the haves and the have-not. Another bad thing in Africa is betrayal. Amilcar Cabral said, and I repeat, when Nkrumah died. Nkrumah died of cancer of the throat in Romania. Amilcar Cabral said the cancer of betrayal. That Nkrumah died of the cancer of betrayal, not the cancer of the truth. Why do I say so? The people who rose up in this Africa to give Africa a facelift, it was only Africans themselves that betrayed. They are accusing Nkrumah to have declared life president in 1964 in Ghana. So when he flew to Vietnam, they organized a coup d'etat and told him not to come back. From there, he flew to Guinea, where one of his sons was named Sekou Nkrumah, after Sekou Touré of Guinea. He stayed there. He wrote many things about Africa in Guinea, and he was working as a co-president in Guinea with Sekou Touré. Why this level of betrayal with people who know they have interests at heart? Nobody could kill Magufuli if not some people from Tanzania. If things are carried out very well, that's a betrayal. Nobody could ever kill Sankara if Blaise Compaoré was not there. Why do Africans make themselves so vulnerable to kill even the ones who want to give a facelift? So we have wars in Africa on different fronts. Different fronts. We have Cold War and we have wars with ammunition. The Cold War in Africa is stronger than the war with guns. The Cold War is the one that somebody's interest is more important than the interest of the state. where people will choose to kill a man that does what benefits the whole state and to occupy the office for his personal interest. I said one time on a program, I said, we are in Africa, that men who respect constitution, they are killed, and those who violate constitution, they are kept in power. How do you explain that? That Idris Deby Itno dies, the constitution is violated, the son takes power, he stays in power. Magufuli was given the opportunity to violate the constitution and going to third term in office. He refused. He was killed. I'm talking about people who are respecting the constitution, they are dying. And the ones who violate it, they are alive. Presidents keep changing constitution. Mussolini changed until he said there is no term limit. From 1987 till date. He first of all say it's 5 years. From 5 years, it's 7 years. 7 years, there's no term limit. That is the poor change because they are alive. Then the ones who respect constitution, they're the ones who are killed. How do you explain that? The cancer of betrayal is the Cold War in Africa that sparks the guns, because the war doesn't begin with guns. It begins with division. It begins with strife. It begins with hatred. It begins with jealousy. It begins with betrayal. It begins with greed. This Cold War, until we treat the onus of this Cold War within us, we can never stop the guns from smoking, because we have a cancer in Africa, not the cancer of the blood. It's not leukemia. It's the cancer of betrayal. And until this war called cancer of betrayal is treated as spelled out by Ambe Cabral in the day of Kuma's death, that was his speech. He said, there is a cancer in Africa, and that cancer is the cancer of betrayal. If we don't stop it, guns will never stop smoking.
Andrin, Atem, Ebako, is that what we have to do? Stop the cancer of betrayal? But is it also a fight for control of power? Because when we see these tribes is in power today, the other tribe thinks that it is my time also to take power, and we see people fighting each other because they want to take power and possibly bring development to their region.
Well, I'm glad he laid that foundation, because the way it is in Africa, the people who want to serve Africa do not live long, are the people who don't want to serve Africa that do live long. So that tells you that there's an existing structure in place that allows that good leaders or good shepherds are being cut short, because the system in place does not allow such to happen in Africa. You see, and that is why, in adding to what he was saying, you see, if you look at in the Christendom, for example, especially in the Pentecostal world, you realize that a lot of people have come to the reality of how demons influences the lives of people. Even though those demons cannot be taken to court, they are not physically seen. But by some spiritual understanding, we are aware that they are spiritual forces that do influence the lives of many people. And in true experience, we have seen that they have a lot of role to do with humanity and human beings. Now, this leads me to explain the fact why Africa is the way it is and why we are having this cancer of the throat. It's because of the presence of the multinational. How do you explain that in 19 countries, America alone has 29 military bases of armies in Africa? France has, I think, 10 or 15 in its own colonies. 15. So add to that of America 29 military bases in Africa, including AFRICOM. And then France has 15 rather, in 10 countries. In 14 countries rather. So how do you explain that all of these insecurities are taking place in the presence of the UN forces, the AFRICOM, all the American military bases, all the French military bases in Africa, and yet we are getting all this insecurity increasing every day?
Yeah, but are you saying that we are not also greedy?
No, this is just to tell you that Africa is being possessed. I'm going to offer a solution on how we can break away from the cancer of the throat. What happened here is that we need to understand that biblical principles here are very vital because I have studied the West in all angles, and I can tell you that they have applied biblical principles from beginning to end. Else, they will not succeed in Africa the way they are succeeding. And until we understand that the universe or this world is governed by spiritual laws and principles which if you do not apply it, you will suffer even though you are innocent. And that is what we know as a truth of the matter. So what they did before in the beginning was separating Africans from Africa. That is a biblical principle which says that a house which is divided against itself can never stand. Whether you like it or not, apply the principle, it works. Whether you are a good man or you are a bad man, as long as the principle has been set in place, you will get the desired result. So what they did before was separating Africans from Africa. And then they went now, secondly, by separating or breaking down the African continent into what I call minority groups. Those are structures. Mr. KUM LEONARD, structures are more dangerous than persons. In Africa, we have leaders who want to keep power till they die. It's even better. But here we are talking of nations keeping power even before the then Africa was born. We are talking of 5 veto members. Imagine Macron behaving like his ancestors since in 1880. A nation is holding power. That is more, it means that the power can never leave the nation until Christ comes. But this man can die, the leader can die, and somebody takes over. So you come to realize that those structures are what are really keeping us down, and until we begin to go back to do the reverse. And this is the way we need to break out of this cancer. The only people who can chase out this possession or invaders in Africa are what I call the Africans in the diaspora. Permit me to establish you this example. Do you know why the Anglophone crisis, the Northwest and Southwest, has persisted almost to 6 years? It's because they have been able to establish link with the Africans in the diaspora, and they are persisting, and the government has not made it easy with them. As long as the diasporans are brought back in alliance with the Africans here, that is the only time the multinationals will pack their bags and leave, because the people who have the capacity and the knowledge, some of us can speak the way we are speaking because we have understood those things. When they get in contact with the Africans and they build that alliance, we will not need the World Bank. We will not need the IMF. We will not need the international community. We will be able to realize ourselves and build ourselves and solve our own problem. But what they have done is that they build what I call the Berlin Wall. The Africans in the diaspora don't know what happens in Africa. The Africans here don't know what happens there. We talk about America. Almost about 40 million Africans in America alone, and they are not treated well by the Americans. Then the Americans want to tell us that they love Africans, or they love the world, the people in Tigray, that they are complaining that of the central government committing crimes against humanity. I'll tell you that all of that is nonsense. So they are here to protect their interest, and it is that interest which is causing this cancer of the throat. How do we take away this interest? We need to get back ourselves together. That means that the Africans in Jamaica, we need to get in alliance with them. The Africans Americans, we need to get in alliance with them. The African in Europe, we need to get alliance with them, because Africa is broken in 3 parts. We have the Africans in Africa, we have the Africans who traveled out of Africa who are abroad, and then you have the Africa whose ancestors were taken out of slavery. We need to establish back ourselves in order for us to gain what I call that sovereignty.
Let me get some messages. Darlington writing from South Africa. Mr. Elio Apostle Ambe is making sense in South Africa. When there is a problem like murder, the president will call like 15 family names without reading from a book because they are connected to the people. But in Cameroon, that's a lie. You will never see the president of South Africa working with God because they know they are covered by the people. Good evening to you, Nanje Richard, and to you, Fondon Richard, Albert BB. Good evening to you, Ate Gopt Mark Knight. Good evening to you, MK Swiru. Nge Asumta, good evening to you, Anita Eno Takang, and all of you watching via social media on our Facebook handle. Good evening, Mr. Liu, and to all the panelists. Awards being fashionable in Africa is regrettable because Africans, no matter how learned they are not educated. Being educated is the ability to apply knowledge acquired from the various diplomas awarded by the Western education in our African setting. I agree with person who said no close closes a market where his products are sold. Remember that what brought the white man to Africa was the search for new markets. He got lucky and met raw materials, which prompted the scramble for Africa. Africans should wake up and say no to Western mentality and go back to their roots. Not every learned person is educated. This is class in Bamnjo. But of course, that Pastor Benaya writing, the economy is facing a high level of what we call old age. That is why the country is at a slum, and the top leaders in Cameroon are very old and can't meet with the youth, and so they are not at the migration or touristic age. Their brains are tired. Okay. Good evening, co-panelists and Mr. Liu. I just want to stress on the view that what Professor Ambe is talking is the fact. Only God can remove Africa from trouble. Okay, good evening to you too. Hello, Mr. Liu. Good evening to you, and you are blessed a guest in the studio. To me, I believe that if there is no war in Africa, these superpowered nations will collapse economically. I'm called Mombe George, writing from Bamenda. We move straight to our second topic for tonight, which has to do with the war that is ongoing in Ethiopia with the Tigray People Liberation Front that are posing a big problem to the government out there. Can you paint the picture of what is wrong in Ethiopia?
Yes, Mr. Liu. You see, Ethiopia is the heart of Africa. Mm-hmm. Ethiopia has a great history of never have been colonized. So have never been colonized. Liberia and Sierra Leone, those three countries were never colonized in Africa. And Ethiopia has the prestige to have defeated Italy in the past at the Battle of Adwa in 1896. Ethiopia has the prestige of a more independent African country, and being the headquarters of the AU, there is that pride. Ethiopia has had a long war from 1998 to 2018 with Eritrea, fighting at the borders that took almost about 100,000 people in the war. When Abe Ahmed came to power, 18 months in power, he was able to resolve the crisis. Abe Ahmed is coming from the Oromo clan. Ethiopia is made of three major clans: the Amhara, the Oromo, and the Tigrayans. Mm-hmm. For the very first time, a man from Oromo is taking power. The Tigrayans have ruled Ethiopia for many years. From 1907 to 1985, Emperor Haile Selassie, who was born in 1907 and he died in 1985, he was the one that ran Ethiopia all through the years. So he came from Tigray. And Tigray is a minority because they have almost about 7% of the population of Ethiopia. Mm-hmm. Recently, when this guy came, how did this guy come to power? He had been a young soldier at the age of 23, he entered the war front. He fought. At the age of 43, he became prime minister by some miraculous means because he's a pastor. Mm-hmm. And then he started solving this problem, and he was one that dropped down his pride and flew down to Eritrea and met Isaiah Afwerki. They resolved the crisis for after 20 years, and then he did some other peace works that earned him the Nobel Peace Prize. These Tigrayans were supposed to go in for elections, the whole nation. Mm-hmm. Tigrayans suddenly, from at their own angle, decided to conduct elections by themselves. And the prime minister said, how can you guys be organizing elections where the whole nation is supposed to go in for elections? The pride is that Tigrayans are very angry. For the very first time, somebody from the Oromo clan is becoming president. It looks like Ethiopia is their private property. So when this guy came, he engaged into a project of constructing a dam which will drain much water from the River Nile, affecting Egypt, to give a boost in the electrical power in Ethiopia. When he came and started that project, Egypt tried to fight against him. When these Tigrayans conducted elections, he tried talking with them amicably, being a Nobel Peace Prize winner. He did everything possible. It wasn't going through. He decided not to launch an attack in the city of Tigray. When he started this attack, almost, I think last week, about 2,000 persons died in a small town in the north. When this thing started, They thought it was just something that you would just cross over. America started saying that they are not content what happened there in Tigray. Oh, he spoke back rudely to America. This was the response of Abiy Ahmed, that America should leave Ethiopia alone. They have no right to run Ethiopian affairs. Suddenly 50,000 soldiers, foot soldiers, marched from Sudan and entered into the Tigray region and started fighting. As we talk right now, the tension in the nation is so high, according to the report of CNN. I saw Ethiopians carrying placards and saying, CNN, stop giving fake news about the war in Ethiopia. You know, America, one of the things you will understand that America is involved, they use the media. The media is owned, or CNN is owned by America. For CNN to have focused all its attention to Ethiopia, when we have Cameroon here, CNN is not talking. Central Africa, CNN is not talking. Mali, CNN is not talking. DRC, CNN is not talking. But the entire news on CNN now is Ethiopia, Ethiopia. It tells you how connected America is, because America knows the power of the media. They are reporting what is not existing. Recently, they said the Tigrayan soldiers are some few hundred meters away to capture the capital, Addis Ababa. Everywhere is under serenity. There is no tension in Addis Ababa. All the news you are hearing from CNN is fake. A friend of mine who flew to Djibouti, from Djibouti to Addis Ababa, he wrote on his Twitter, he said, the things I'm seeing on television is something else. Why? America is applying the Hitler modus operandi through Joseph Goebbels, the propaganda machinery. When Goebbels said we have captured the Rhineland, when he had not reached Rhineland, he said he has walked over Paris and he has already captured Belgium.
Okay, let us...
Mr. Leo, let me land. Let me land. Those of you who are following the Ethiopian crisis, don't follow CNN. They are not trusted. They are just there to destabilize Ethiopia, because Ethiopia is doing something that is going to benefit the whole continent.
Okay.
That dam.
Yes, let's get the first reaction to this topic from Tiku Felix from Boya.
Yeah, Mr. Leo, you see, like the African Union, for example, said 2020 is supposed to be a landmark year because it will be silencing the guns as a means to put an end to all wars. Actually, it's a good goal. The goal is worth applauding for. But my question is, who is the African Union, or what is the African Union? Because to my understanding, it is just another scheme through which the colonial masters try to maintain a form of, or try to put a whole continent, or make a whole continent a colony. Yeah, Mr. Leo, with regards to the situation in Ethiopia, I want to say the conflict is kind of similar to that in Cameroon in many aspects. Why am I saying this? This is a war in which propaganda has been used to cover the realities on ground instead of looking for a calm and peaceful way to attend to the cry of a hungry people. Mr. Leo, the whole world know about Ethiopia. When you talk of Ethiopia, the first thing somebody thinks of is hunger. And now when the situation has come up again, that people are crying because of hunger, I don't think it is something that the government needs to just look at it anyhow. You understand? It's very funny. According to the UN, it said about 4.5 or 5 million people in Tigray are in need of emergency food assistance. That they are in dire need of food. And remember, a hungry man is an angry man. Complain, no attention. They give complaints, no attention. And the only way they have to do is to kind of cause a fight that will bring government's attention in order to meet with their needs. But instead of the government giving attention, we hear the prime minister making situation, calling them terrorists. And he was going as far as saying the terrorist act will be short-lived, as military is going to crush them all. That's just a situation with our government. a situation arises, just a simple talk, a simple dialogue, meeting the people one-on-one, give them even some kind of promises and raise their hopes. But the first thing we do is we are just so power hungry, we want to conserve power, and we look at anything like a threat to that power, such that we don't look at the genuinity of people's cry and plea. All what we do is we term them terrorists. Okay, now see what is happening. The conflict is no longer confined, but has escalated to other regions like the Afara and the Ambara. You see, when the conflict starts and it starts extending, Mr. Leo, that's how the solution becomes difficult. Worst of it is this, the OLA, which is a kind of a liberation army. They have now joined the Tigray people. You understand? Okay, this is a people that have a problem with the government. You understand? And now they are taking advantage of what is happening in Tigray, and they are forming an alliance to fight the government. You understand? This is something that even the UN had warned that if care is not taken, it will move to a civil war. African leaders never care so long as they have the backing of the military. They know that whenever you raise your head up, it's the military. Whenever you raise your head up in the military, okay, things are getting worse. Create a platform for negotiation now. The government too says the OLA, that's is it the Oromo or what? Oromo Liberation Army. It says they were once a terrorist group and they are still a terrorist group, and as a result of that, they don't negotiate with the terrorists. Just complicating issues. Now people are fighting to take over certain territories. Different groups have emerged with different interests, and the thing gets so complicated. So that's the situation of Ethiopia. And our government needs to at least sit and understand that it will be difficult to always use the military to solve a problem, especially with a problem like that of Ethiopia that has to do with hunger.
Okay, thank you, Tiku. Felix, the Tigrayans, are they taking up arms against the Ethiopian government because of hunger?
No, there are certain factors which gives them that that provokes them or provoked them to pick up arms against the central government. And one of those things were that, as a matter of fact, the Tigrayans applauded when Abiy Ahmed took over power because they felt that he was going to keep their influence in Ethiopia, judging the fact that they had ruled Ethiopia for 30 years. And they also had some top government key position politicians, which when Abiy Ahmed entered, he had to remove them. And then also freed some political prisoners. And that offended the Tigrayans so much because many of their top politicians were being removed out from the government setup. And then they withdrew back. In the period of that time of that election where the state was going to have an election, Abiy Ahmed decided to postpone the election period due to the COVID.
Yes.
And then the Tigrayans went ahead to hold their elections.
Revolution.
And then at that period, they had to launch an attack towards the central government. At that point, like what Abiy Ahmed was saying, he did not receive calls from the international community. But when they started hitting the Tigrayans in the point of discipline, they started getting calls from all angles on what is happening in Tigray. But like all through that, the CNN and the BBC is talking of the advancement of the troops right up to Addis Ababa, Abiy Ahmed says he has not received any calls from the international community, which simply means that they are in support of the move of the Tigrayans to the capital city. And this is also another clear sign to tell us that really we do not have an African Union in Africa, because you cannot have a war that is brought over to the doorstep of your house and then you seem absent at home. As a matter of fact, African Union has not offered a word. This is just to tell you that the African Union was here or came up in 2002 was to protect the interests of the imperialists in Africa and not the Africans. Because the African Union itself has troops What are they doing? They are not doing anything. So Abiy Ahmed, like I kept saying that each of all these nations are run individually and they are kept separately to each other, because he seemed to be standing alone, same as Mali, same as Guinea-Conakry, same as Sudan. They all seem to be standing as an island and allowing the international community to start laying all kinds of sanctions. We are talking about over $143 million dollars that is going to Ethiopia to aid the people in Tigray. But majority of Ethiopians and Africans do not understand that 2 decades ago, there is an existing treaty which states that, which is non-renewable, that America is in control of all the natural resources of Ethiopia. And then there are companies, from what the statistics shows, do not pay tax in Ethiopia, and the tax evasion alone per year rises up to 2.7% GDP. So this is a huge exploitation going in, and you are talking of $143 million to go in for as aid.
And that's what kept Tigray in power.
When you are ripping out almost everything out of Ethiopia, and they knew, like, this is the major interest why the apostle was talking about the CNN going out and making propaganda on the behalf of America, is because America knows what is at stake. As a matter of fact, they said America was still surprised that up till now Abiy Ahmed had not annulated that treaty, which was not renewable. Because if that is if it's counsel, that means that America has no control of Ethiopia, and so they are protecting their interests in Ethiopia. We are talking of 2.7% GDP. A year of tax erosion and tax evasion alone of their companies which do not pay tax in Ethiopia. And then what do you expect the AU to do? AU sits quiet because AU is there in favor of the Americans. That's why AU does not talk. That's the capital of the African Union, which was constructed by the Chinese, a free give of $200 million. We are talking of a war at Addis Ababa, and African Union is quiet. So we don't have what I call that unity. And it's clear that we are, like the apostle was talking, we still are fighting for our independence in an indirect way. So until Abiy Ahmed continue, because I think he has been making some very positive steps by calling on all the Ethiopians to rise up and defend their land, which is a good thing. And he has moved further also in seeking solidarity with the diasporans. That's why you see a huge agitation out of Africa, especially in the West, where Africans are protesting and are telling the Americans, telling the CNN of all the lies they have been propagating in Ethiopia. But nobody talks about the tax evasion. Nobody talks about the non-renewable treaty of controlling all their natural resources in Ethiopia. So these are the things that we are saying, that if those things, Mr. Leo, that's why they keep their interest there. That's why the CNN is doing all what they are doing.
Apostle Ambe, Valentine, Ngwa, Tiku Felix talked about the fact that the people are hungry and they want food, and the government is responding in a very violent manner. But why don't we see the focus more on the power tussle of a people who want to conserve power, knowing fully well that, like you said earlier on, Mr. B came to power in 2018. 2018, yes. And then started engaging some reforms, and normally stood on the toes of many persons. But to know that Ethiopia, since 1994, is a federal state, runs its federal system, a federal system in which ethnic groups control, I think how many? Just 4 ethnic groups control 10 regions. So it's more of a power tussle.
Yes, it's more of a power tussle. That's why I'm letting you understand that the Tigrayans have ruled Ethiopia for 30 years plus. They have been in charge of power from 1961. They have ruled Ethiopia for many years. So it looks like that treaty was signed between the Tigrayans and Americans more than the Tigrayans and the Ethiopians. And that's the reason why they stayed in power for too long. But for the very first time, how Ambe Ahmed came to power still remains
2018, just 3 years ago.
It's 3 years ago. It remains a miracle. 18 months in power, he earned the Nobel Peace Prize. And the Tigrayans were the one in power when the Ethiopia-Eritrea war prolonged for 20 years. They were the ones in power. So he came, and then what he did was that he was too flexible and accessible, to the extent where he rallied all pressure groups in the country to come back and stand as political parties. Nobody was arrested, maimed, tortured, or maltreated when Abe came to power. That's the reason why the Nobel Peace Council in Norway sat down and looked at his leadership capacity and said, you deserve a Nobel Peace. Nobody has ruled for 18 months and Nobel Peace Prize. And after he came and got that thing, this stirring started in Tigray. For the very first time, somebody from a strange root is trying to control Ethiopia. It's not normal. I'm very young at the age of 43 years. When he came now to power, that was when these guys became very offended and they were angry. Then elections were supposed to be conducted in 2020, the month of July. When the time came, he said the COVID-19 is serious. No, well, yes, 2020. COVID-19 is serious. Then they had to push the elections. Tigrayans said, no, we are conducting our own elections. So when they conducted elections, he didn't still react. He moved towards them, tried to make peace, tried to talk with them. They said no. That was when they went and attacked a military base in Tigray. That was when he said, but they have crossed that boundary. He now took steps now to start attacking them. The Eritrean soldiers also helped Ethiopia in Tigray to fight against the Tigrayans. That was when it's like they had crossed the Tigrayans, and then suddenly there was a camp. And then from nowhere, 50,000 soldiers came from Sudan. From where did they come from? It's AFRICOMAN. AFRICOMAN is American military base in Africa that the capital is in Stuttgart, Germany. That military base is to make sure that they train countries in Africa that belong to the United Nations for the Security of Africa. They are in Somalia, yet the sea coast of Somalia constantly faces pirates and there are bombings every year and there in Somalia. They are in Central Africa. There are constant challenges. They are in the Sahel, G5 Sahel, comprised of Niger, Burkina Faso, Mali, Chad, and Mauritania. There is no peace there. AFRICOMAN is in the Horn of Africa, where Ethiopia is found. Then you are telling me that suddenly from nowhere, Tigrayans just developed 50,000 forces and then they just join. And then BBC is saying that they are moving closer. They are not even 10,000 kilometers away from the capital. Yet they are talking how they are about to take over the capital. It's rubbish. For the information we are giving you, those of you who are listening here, nobody is taking over Ethiopia. Abe Ahmed is a leader who has left his record in the short time in power. And now the greed is that Egypt and America are collaborating because of the dam that he's constructing. That dam will reduce much water from the Nile. So there is an anger there. So when they say there is hunger in Tigray that is causing the people to react, I'm wondering if the hunger suddenly just came in Tigray. Ethiopia is a country that has many challenges. Food shortage has always been a reason. Somebody said the reason why Ethiopia is strong in the air is because the land is unproductive. They have come out the best airlines in Africa on almost 3 different occasions. They have about 100 aircraft that are running across the nations of the world because their land is not fertile, so they have decided to go on air. So the hunger stuff in Tigray is not a new story. The Oromo also are hungry. The Amhara also are hungry. Everybody in Ethiopia is hungry. The problem is power tussle, ethnicity, ethnocracy is what is killing us. I keep telling us that until we stop this ethnicity in Africa, we can never have peace. And considering the fact that the people who are ruling right now have never tasted power in Ethiopia. Go to Rwanda. Paul Kagame is a Tutsi. It's not a Hutu. You go to Cote d'Ivoire. Alassane Ouattara is on the minority north. So how do you explain? So let them not go and say it's a matter of hunger. It's a matter of ethnicity. And the interest of the West in Ethiopia is the reason why we have this spark in Ethiopia right now. The Tigrayans think that they are ancestors of Ethiopia, that they have the right to the ancestral stool, which is the presidency, to stay there. And for your information, the Ethiopian president is a woman, but it's very silent. They have a president. Ethiopia has a president, is a woman, but very silent. The person who is playing the pivotal role is the prime minister. That's why the office of the prime minister is very, very active. So Abe Ahmed has been a military officer and he understands the dangers of war. That's why he's doing everything possible in his power to maintain peace. A man who fought war at the border of Eritrea and Ethiopia for 20 years, at the age of 23, he fought and became president at the age of 43 years. So he says, when he was taking his Nobel paper, he said, I am not talking like somebody who sits in an office to talk about war. I was at the war front. I saw mothers died. I saw children butchered. I saw soldiers died. I saw people I slept with in the morning. The horrors of war have been clouding my mind. I hate to see war. That's Ambe's speech when he was taking the peace prize in Norway. So when we are talking about Tigrayans are fighting, Ambe cannot foster war. He cannot. He must have been pressed to the extent that he cannot contain it.
Yeah. Are we coming back to Africans playing out the dictates or instructions of the West?
The cancer.
Well, like I still say, it's still the structures which are still in control, because Ethiopia being a federal democratic country is still democracy that we are talking of, where we still say people have the right to express themselves, freedom of speech. And when you live in a society where there is no order, it becomes a very huge challenge, because that's what democracy does. It gives people the right to challenge even when somebody is doing the right thing.
But we are talking about the Horn of Africa, and when we talk of Ethiopia, it's very, very pivotal, strategic as far as the stability of that area is concerned. Yes. How do we understand that, like you raised earlier on, no African president is getting worked up to wanting to see an end to what is happening?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but that's it now. We are all here now, Mr. KUM LEONARD, in almost 54 African nations. We have Ethiopia going through what they are going through. And we are rather getting by the Americans, the voices of the Americans. We've not heard from AU. We've not heard from the ECOWAS that was intruding in Mali. We've not heard from any other African organization as far as what is happening in Ethiopia. And this is what I'm trying to say, that is a major sign to tell us that we still have not done the right thing that we were supposed to do. And one of the things that I noticed about Abiy Ahmed was that what he did was the fact that he was able to get all the political opposition leaders and then brought them all together in one place where he could build and build what I call some level of consensus in such a way that all of them can be able to develop their nation collectively. The Tigrayans refused attending that meeting. They were the only people.
They backed out.
Yes. They were only people who did not attend that meeting. So, like what he was saying is that Abiy Ahmed must have been pushed to the wall, and that's what. And this is where the international community wants to get him. They want to put him on a panic, get him on his knees, because now we are talking about sanctions. They are talking about crimes against humanity, human rights. What have we not heard of sanctions and allegations that they are building against the central government of Ethiopia? So at the end of the day, is this what we call democracy double standard? You talk of democracy and then you are intruding in what is happening in Ethiopia. That is not democracy. Allow the people to decide themselves, and that's the position of Abiy Ahmed, and they understand that the steps Abiy Ahmed has been taking in Ethiopia can free Africa, because that dam we are talking of, Mr. KUM LEONARD, has the capacity to generate electricity in the entire Africa. That is a simple truth. So it's that same project, he requested funds from the IMF or the World Bank. They refused funding that project. And he decided that the Ethiopians themselves were going to build that project. And the Ethiopians decided to pick up that project. Do you know that humanitarian aid that was going right down to Tigray had ammunitions in bags of rices and other stuffs that were being sent from abroad to go to the people of Tigray to go and rescue the food crisis there. They create this condition and begin to make as if they are trying to help the people of Tigray. They don't love Africans. They are here for their own interests, just like what we have been talking about. With all their military bases in Africa, what are they doing here? What are they doing? That is a question. They are not here for the Ethiopians. They are not here for the Africans. They are here to protect their interests, and they are here for the resources. And we need to learn and understand that these are the moves they are taking. And that's why I still go back to say that when we get leaders in power, we need to get the kind of leaders who will go into power and begin to create the alliance that I keep talking about with the Africans in the diaspora. Africa is still not a place where it can be called a home for all Africans in all walks of life. But we need to create a union Either the OAU, but not the African Union, a union that represents the interests of both the Africans at home and Africans in the diaspora. But what we are seeing today in Africa, Mr. KUM LEONARD, at the level of our leadership, it's like a man who wants to acquire his father's property without considering the fact that the father has other children. These are leaders have been running Africa individually as a private state-owned company in the absence of their own people and representing the interests of other people, and they do not by themselves seek collaboration and unity among themselves. What is happening in Mali? Mali is standing alone. What is happening in Sudan? Sudan is standing alone. They are laying sanctions in Sudan, Mr. KUM LEONARD, only because the plan that they had with the former transitional government has been altered. And this is what we are saying, that Africa, with the structure in place, does not permit good leadership. Imagine a man like Abiy Ahmed, a young man who knows the suffering of his people. Look at the kind of problem they have put before his doorstep. It's very challenging. And this is what we are saying, that we need Africans to get to the point to know what is happening in Africa and learn to stand behind good leaders. This is very important. We cannot be in a nation where you can compare two things, Mr. KUM LEONARD, when something is bad. But when something is good, you don't need to compare. You just need to stick with that is good, because that's what you need. And when we have leaders that have interest for their people, we don't need people to oppose them. We need them to support them and give them the room in order to do what they are called to do. And so if Ethiopia can take down that line, where the Ethiopians themselves can rally themselves and find a way and reach the Tigrayans to stop this attack and bring a certain consensus whereby the Ethiopians can go back to their normal life and continue building back their Africa. Ethiopia is a good example for Africa, and that is the capital of Africa. It's Ethiopia.
Okay. The conflict started on November the 4th when Ethiopian Prime Minister Abiy ordered a military offensive against regional forces in Tigray. He said he did so in response to an attack on a military base housing government troops there. The escalation came after months of fighting between Mr. Abiy's government and leaders of Tigray's dominant political party. For almost 3 decades, the party was at the center of power before it was sidelined by Mr. Abiy, who took office in 2018 after anti-government protests. Mr. Abiy pursued reforms, but when Tigray resisted, the political crisis erupted into war. The roots of the crisis can be traced to Ethiopia's system of government. Now, what should be the way out for Mr. Abiy and Africans?
The way out for Mr. Abiy is Africans should learn to celebrate their own.
Okay.
Until we start acknowledging our best beyond tribal, ethnic, and regional sentiment, we can never have the best. I have repeated this statement on this platform. I'm still repeating it. If you go to Gambia, there is a portion of them called the Mandinkas. You go to South Sudan, there are the Mandinkas there also. If you go to Kenya, you have the Luos, you have the Kikuyus, you have the Kalenjins. Inside Ethiopia, you have the Amhara, you have the Oromo, you have the Tigrayans. These are different ethnic groups. Until we suppress ethnic sentiment and go after the best, who works for the interests of the entire nation, and we stop regionalism, tribalism, ethnicity, and nepotism, we can never and ever transform Africa. That Mr. Leo is a good leader. He comes from Menchum. I come from Mezan. He is working for the interests of Cameroon. I should be able to give him every support possible. And that is what we even face in the church in Cameroon. Everybody wants to be a king in their small cycle, rather than raising a king that can take care of the whole nation. That is why we have a challenge. Abiy Ahmed's policies, for the very first time he came to power, proved to every Ethiopian that he wanted to work for the interests of the country. When most people take power, the first thing they do is to confront their enemy and annihilate them. But that is not what Abiy Ahmed did. He instead assembled all pressure groups, brought them down, Oromo Liberation Front, Tigray People Liberation Front, and other pressure groups, that they should come back and set up political parties, and then they go for elections. He that wins the elections will democratically follow the president.
Yeah, but when he made that call, the Tigrayans did not agree to it.
That's why I'm letting you understand that Tigray is a minority in Ethiopia, but because of ethnicity, regionalism, nepotism, and tribalism is what is causing the challenge we have in Africa. You go to Nigeria, you have the Igbos, you have the Yorubas, you have the Fulanis. It is a matter of tribalism. That is still killing. I must rule. We have this serious challenge in Africa because if we don't deal with this thing, the West takes advantage of our own disadvantages. If we did not have disadvantage, the West will not have an advantage. The enemy can only have an advantage or you have a disadvantage. And our disadvantage is, I repeat, regionalism, ethnicity, tribalism, and nepotism. Until we fight this sickness we have in the house, the West will always have influence. Do you know that the person that was used to kick out David Dako was his own cousin, Jean Bendel Bokassa? That one is not even ethnicity. It's not regionalism. It's familiarity. Another level of witchcraft in Africa is familiarity. We are not interested in the one that has a big picture. We are not. If you go to the biblical text of Saul and David, once David came to power, Bible said the women gathered. Says Saul has killed his thousands. David has killed his 10,000. It's to let you understand that even though you are sitting on the throne, we know who is the leader. In other words, not everyone sitting on the throne is the choice of the people. But sometimes the choice of the people are not even accepted. Because why? The ones who hold their own in power, it was Pierre Lemma who said that if we elect a thief from a particular community, the community will keep that thief in power because it is their own thief. People can judge other people's thieves except their own thieves. And this is where Africa is failing today because we have the problem of who comes from our tribe. I want to ask if Tigrayans are watching this program, what did Abiy Ahmed do that you guys insist him not to rule you? For the past 30 years that you have controlled Ethiopia, what is the impact? Water is still a challenge. Food is still a challenge. Domestic is still a challenge. The health condition is still a challenge. Peace was even a challenge before Abiy Ahmed came. For 30 years you were giving power, you couldn't do anything. Is it now when they give you do something? That's the problem. We have given you the opportunity to prove your leadership qualities. You have failed woefully for 3 decades. Now they have given to somebody for 18 months. He earns a prize that all your leaders that came from your region could not earn. It's to let you understand that a better person has taken power. Listen, it is not the people of a house that appreciate a man. It's a stranger from outside that recognizes a man's leadership. If the Norwegian Peace Prize Committee could sit down and ascertain Abiy Ahmed's 18 months in power and give him that prestigious award, I want to let you understand that we guys have to wake up and understand that God has sent a Messiah to you and you are trying to chase him away. If Tigrayans come to power, nothing will change. So they should get out of regionalism, ethnicity, tribalism, and nepotism. That is Africa's disadvantage. Then the West now, America will never come into Ethiopia until tribalism sparked up the crisis. Ethnicity sparked up the crisis. If Tigrayans did not react against the Oromos or the Amharas, then America will not have a chance not to go through CNN. So you discover that what is bringing the external force is a battle within the house. If there was no ethnicity, America will not be in Ethiopia now.
Okay. Yes. Can the solution to what is happening in Ethiopia come from the West? Because seemingly the West is more concerned by what is happening out there than Africans.
I tell you, when there's an existing problem and then a solution is found, failure to apply that solution is even worse than the problem. The existing problem we are talking of technically is created by the West. You see, all those things the apostles have cited, tribalism, nepotism, and all of that. Let me give you a simple biblical principle to substantiate what is happening in Africa or in Ethiopia. The scripture says that the law is made to reveal sin. So in the absence of the law, sin is not put into account. So that means that when you set in a structure, you provoke something in return. When we are talking of tribalism, what causes the tribalism? Tell the people to go out to vote. That's when you see tribalism. That's when you see tribalism. Tell the people to go out to choose their own leader. That's when you get all of those divisions that we are talking. Because why? The people have to go out in divided ranks. That's already a sign of failure. And that is why we say that all these minority groups takes away the power of the people. And this is what we are trying to say, that we need leadership to come from the masses. That is the will of the people. Not from a minority group where you go there and you are going to protect your tribe, protect your party, and then protect the one who controls your democracy. Take out democracy, you solve the problem of all of those tribalism, wars, and all, because we will get leaders who go in to represent the entire nation. Do not forget that Ethiopia is the oldest African nation with the oldest Bible in the whole of mankind. All these other African nations were born. We are talking of Africa 60 years old. Who gave birth to Africa? But nobody gave birth to Ethiopia. So Ethiopia is a very significant country in Africa that all Africans need to go out and support Ethiopia in this moment of crisis. The African Union has failed. The international community have failed. But the African people should not fail in to give Abiy Ahmed the kind of support he needs, because though he came from a party, though he was elected, but he represents the people, we need to give him that support. That is my point. Because whether you conduct elections in Ethiopia, we know how elections run in Africa. And until I say that, until we get back to the point of appointing leaders that we know that can meet up the responsibility and meet the demands of their people and their society, we are not going to get free. But if we want to play by the game and the rules set in place by the UN, permit me this for 30 seconds, please. Look at what is happening in Mali. Malians came out, they are just living from a democratic government. And then you are still telling them back again to go into another elections. It's like telling a man who has just left frying pan to enter fire. You are sending him back from the same place where he is running. Allow, if Assimi Goïta, for example, choose to be the president in Mali, what is the problem? I asked when Sankara took over power. Did they call for election? But he did well. So the idea of getting the people to go and choose will always create division. That is the simple truth. So take out democracy, you solve that problem. We will get leaders that will represent the people and not the party.
Okay, Apostle Ambe, we have to end at this juncture. Thank you for coming.
Thank you, Mr. Leo. It's always a joy to be here. Thank you, viewers, for giving us your attention tonight.
One last word to Africans.
Yes, Africans break out of regionalism, ethnicity, nepotism, and tribalism. That is a disadvantage within that gives the enemy advantage from without.
Okay. Also, thank you to you.
Thank you very much, Mr. KUM LEONARD. Special greetings to everyone.
We also want to say thank you to you, Dr. Herman Bamnjo, who came in from Bamnjo, the Northwest Regional Capital, as well as you, Tiku, Felix, who participated from Boya, Southwest Regional Capital. We want to also say thank you to all of you who took time off to watch the program on social media and in your respective homes. Thank you to the production team, Desmond and Eli, and to you, Tabi Tambe Bryant, supervising the work we do out there. Stay blessed. Bye-bye.